Okay, I'm all ready to start when you are.
Okay, we can go ahead and get moving then. So I'd like to call this meeting of the Ad Hoc Rules Committee meeting to order here at 5:11 p.m. on Thursday, March 9th. And I'd like to start with a moment of silence. Amen. All right. Is there a motion to defer the minutes from our previous meeting?
So move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The minutes are deferred. I'd like to move to our outstanding business that we have, which is the deferral from council related to the appointments process. So with that, I will open it up for some discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I just kind of, if there's any other compromises out there, I'm willing to listen. The idea that we left previously with was the mayor would recommend with advice and consent of council. I thought that was good. But anyway, we have quite a bit of discussion at council on that. Obviously, it got deferred. If there are any compromises out there or changes to that, certainly I'm here to listen. So.
Did everyone receive the memo from the legal department regarding the constitutionality question?
I haven't seen that. I'm not saying they didn't send it, but I haven't seen it.
I know you guys are busy, and I did send it this morning, the day of the meeting, so I apologize for that, but I will just, we have no constitutionality issues. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
There was a recommendation from Councilman Appel that perhaps by removing the line, City Council should have the responsibility to approve such recommended appointments no later than the second meeting in January. That would alleviate his concern that we are somehow binding council to a future legislative act or decision by state law. So we can certainly work with that language in some way to remove that concern.
What does it say? Well, Mr. Chairman,
Councilmember Waring.
what does it say now? I mean, what does the existing rules say?
The existing rule doesn't say anything about council consent. So this is all about what council needs to do by January.
But I mean, don't we, the mayor has to put it on our desk by January. Is that what the rule says now?
Correct. I believe so.
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yep, Councilmember Bowden.
One potential compromise, if anybody feels real strongly about that timing, it could just say city council should instead of shall.
Yeah, because shall has the legal oomph on it, whereas should is merely a recommendation. Right.
Legal oomph, huh? I like that, legal oomph.
Yeah. What do you think, Councilmember Waring?
Well, I think, I don't know if you could run that by me again. I got to be frank, I had to take another call, so that's why I went on mute. I'm supposed to be chairing a church finance. Mr. Mayor, you appreciate this, St. Patrick's Finance Council meeting at 6:00. So
this was a very popular meeting time, sounds like.
I tell you, man. So half an hour.
So what I was suggesting, it says as written now, or the proposal. Oh yeah, perfect. So city council shall have the responsibility to approve such recommended appointments no later than the second meeting in January.
Okay.
It would alleviate any concern whatsoever if it said city council should, or may is probably a little passive. If anybody really wants that deadline to mean something,
Right.
Should is not mandatory in any way.
Is there a way, Julia, to say, and Councilmember Waring and I had spoken about this as well. Perhaps instead of providing the deadline, doing something like, city council may take action after 30 days of review or something to that effect. That way it's not binding the action, but it is giving time for the discussion and everything that we, have said is kind of a priority on this.
I mean, we could say something like council will take action no later than 30 days after the mayor's recommendation. That's what you're thinking?
I think,
What do you guys think?
I think that sort of has the same issue as the language now. To the extent that there is an issue, I guess.
Right.
Yep, Councilmember Waring.
Let me ask this. What's the language that we have to pass the budget by a date certain? I mean, certainly has to be done by 12/31. How's that language, Steve?
Councilmember Bowden.
So that's, and I'm doing this maybe to prevent receiving legal advice in public, but so just one member of the committee's opinion, the difference between that and this would be that is a responsibility required by the state.
Yeah.
So the state requires us to pass a budget by that time. And so we can't run afoul of state law considering we are a creation of state law.
That makes a whole lot of sense.
Thank you, Councilman Bowden.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, completely unofficial advice there.
No, that was great though. Thank you. Rick Jarrell.
Don't send us a bill though.
Go ahead, Rick.
So.
Yeah, my question is, what is the concern with the language as written? As proposed?
I think, was it this constitutional question? I don't.
And if there's no constitutional question, what is, I mean, this is exactly, I think, what the intent was at the last meeting is the mayor provides the appointments the first meeting in December, and council shall have the responsibility to approve such recommended no later than the second meeting in January. I mean, if it wants to do it sooner, it can, but I don't. And Julia, there's no constitutional issue with that, is there?
It's not necessarily a constitutional issue. It's the question of state law as to whether or not this is binding future councils to a legislative act. By saying they have to approve something by a certain date. I mean, we could say they shall have the responsibility to vote on such recommendations no later than. That would be cleaner.
Okay.
I like that.
I like that too. I like that too.
Because it's not saying it has to go one way or the other.
Right.
Right.
And then the next section in there, right after that starts with the in case of a vacancy, that holds force if council votes not to approve those, then that's addressed there. I
agree. I agree with that. I don't think we need any changes on that. I mean, there's a vacancy, let the mayor appoint it. At the end of the year, you don't have 2 months, the better part of 2 months, I guess, do we? He recommends in December, we can convince with him, one another, back around again by January. If a vacancy comes available, I mean, somebody leaves, moves, or whatever, unfortunately dies, then that appointment can be done, in a hasty manner. So I'm okay with it staying where we had it the last time. But anyway.
So I think, is there a consensus then we can change approve to vote? And that should take away the obligation idea.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Do you need a motion on that? I'll also move if that helps.
All right. It has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and properly seconded that we change the language on this from approve to vote. Is there any further discussion on that?
Well, could I
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
raise a question? So if you vote, doesn't mean you necessarily approve. And so you might run beyond the time of, to approve a particular committee or chair. So could we have a little caveat also that, if some approval is not reached, that the prior committee members and chairman continue to serve until,
I agree with that.
such new approval occurs?
I agree. Listen, I think, well, Mr. Chairman,
Yep, go ahead.
I think that's a great suggestion. I think if, if we vote and let's say it's denied, then why wasn't it, we already have standing committees, why don't they continue it as they are?
Yeah.
I agree with that,
don't
Mr.
want to
Chairman.
get to a situation which I think somebody mentioned at one of our meetings that, if you ended up with some kind of standoff and we got to do business, we got to have these committees in place to conduct business. So I don't want to be without my committees,
Okay,
Well, yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think this, I agree with all of that.
Oh, okay.
So, Julia, would we be able to add that language in? I think it goes in the same section there. That if something to the effect of,
I've got the prior appointments will continue to meet until council reaches a consensus on the appointments, something to that effect.
well, I think it's until the new recommendations are approved.
Right, okay. Until the new recommendations are approved. I like that better.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yep. Councilmember Waring.
Let me ask on that. See, I kind of think is hopefully if you don't get it approved in January, then maybe the previous committees continue to stand. Mr. Mayor, what do you think about it? I don't think we should hopefully be in April, May trying to approve standing committees. Hopefully we get it done in January. If it fails, then the current positions continue to serve. I mean, unless somebody, doesn't get reelected. Like I say, somebody dies, and in that case, the mayor still gets to appoint. So,
Right.
so the functionality would continue. We wouldn't have a gap in functionality.
Right.
Mhm.
So right now I have it reading the prior appointments will continue to meet regularly until the new recommendations are approved.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think that clears up the any inconsistency that may have been with the current way it was written. All right.
I'm probably doing too much here, but with those things sort of jammed in, I wonder if we lose what Councilmember Waring is intending to do here, which is give the mayor the responsibility of recommending appointments, and city council the responsibility of approving commitment or appointments. And so if this goes, when this goes back in front of city council, I want to make sure that what he's intending to do is preserved here. I mean, so it might be cleanest to spell it out at the beginning. Mayor recommends, council approves, council needs to take the vote by this date. If beyond this date, council doesn't approve, then here's how they're filled. In the interim, all committees should continue to operate as they were previously appointed or something like that. Does that make sense? It's just, it feels like we're missing steps by what was just proposed. And it sort of leaves some ambiguity over who actually does the approval.
Councilman Brady, would you mind letting me share my screen? That way you can look at the language while we're talking through this while I change it.
Yep, you should be able to.
That way gives us a little more of a benefit here. Can you guys see what I'm working on right here?
Okay.
So I just removed that line that I can put it back in. Councilman Bowden, you're saying this creates a little more just confusion or?
Yeah, there's just a little ambiguity. It doesn't seem clear to me if you read this without the benefit of the conversation we just had,
Right.
who actually has the responsibility of confirming the appointments or the recommendations.
And I see that Rick and the mayor both have their hand up, and I think Rick was first.
I'll let the mayor go first. I'm smart enough.
That's real smart, Rick.
Well, y'all, I don't mean to complicate things, but I'm just sitting here thinking another level of all this, and it might indicate some of the beauty of the simplicity of what was already written up. But, every 4 years, the mayor's up for election, and
Yeah.
he can get replaced. And so the way our existing system worked when I came in, I got sworn in at that first meeting and I had my committee list ready, for approval, which under this scenario, if a new mayor gets elected, he's not even mayor yet. And he's got to, because he doesn't get sworn in until the first meeting in January. And what we're writing up here is that mayor-elect, would you say would the mayor or the mayor-elect present the recommendations at the first meeting in December before he's even sworn in as mayor? I'm just saying.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a real good point. Huh. I guess you put a caveat in there until, Listen, I got to tell you, what I wanted to try to create was more conversation between the 13 people involved. That's what I want to do. Okay?
Yeah.
So, how do we do that? So I guess in the case of a new mayor,
You almost have to wait till the first meeting in January for
I
him.
agree. In the
For
event,
him.
you have to have a caveat in the event that a new mayor is elected, because the mayor-elect shouldn't do that because he's not mayor yet.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think you want to have a mayor-elect do.
I agree.
So
So
that only happens once every 40 years around here, right? No, I'm
every
kidding.
40 years. Man, what are you talking about? So Mr. Bowden and Ms. Copeland, do we need a little caveat in the event that if the new mayor is elected?
Let me call on Rick since he
Okay, yeah,
hasn't had his turn to go yet.
I mean, why don't you just say this? The mayor at the first meeting in January shall recommend appointments to the standing committees. City councils have a responsibility to vote on recommended appointments no later than the second meeting in January. Between the first and second meeting in January, the previous committee shall continue to exist. The previous council's committee shall continue to exist. It solves, I think, the mayor-elect issue, and it just for that first couple of weeks, which are really organizational meetings in many ways anyway. That first committee meeting, the prior committee continues to exist.
And I think that also solves a little bit of our December meetings are pretty focused on the budget as well, and we're not having to kind of pull double duty on sorting out committee appointments while also trying to make sure we go through the budget.
And while I've never lived through one of these transitions, I think it makes sense that the incoming mayor-elect would reach out to council members and start having those conversations anyway.
Right.
So, I mean, I think what Rick said probably, I think that probably works. I mean, if the outgoing mayor is just hell bent on making recommendations, I mean, by all means, but
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, my own experience over the last 7 years has been first meeting in December, we're just all consumed with the budget.
Yeah.
I really personally didn't have the time or take the time to even think about committee appointments till after Christmas. And I got a little bit of downtime to think, and I don't have my days all full of meetings. So anyway, that's just my own personal experience with it.
Well, Mr.
Yep,
Chairman,
Councilman Warren.
I agree with the mayor brought a great point. I agree with what Rick said. If we get it done in January, if it's in the event of a new mayor, we used to do it in January anyway. I was just trying to create more time for discussion. You still can have that time for discussion.
Yep.
Thank you. It doesn't have to be written in the ordinance.
That's right.
So let's go back to what Rick. Can you remember what you just said?
I think you just said January rather than December.
Correct,
Yeah.
right.
And I think you want to say, and that the committees from the prior council will continue to meet regularly until the new recommendations from the previous council will continue to meet regularly until the new recommendations are approved.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Sounds good to me.
Yep, because I'm thinking the same thing where, we see like if there's changes in the council's composition as well, the mayor can appoint that vacancy. I mean, that's spelled out there. And then if there's changes to other compositions of the committees, that comes through the, putting the slate out there. And then it's 2 weeks in between for that to get sorted. Yep, Mayor Tecklenburg, I see your hand up.
Okay, so I'd put the word "to," responsibility to vote.
Sorry.
Fourth line. And then, y'all, you got them on that highlighted portion. The committees from the previous council will continue to meet regularly until the new recommendations are approved. I hate to get technical, but you could have a council member who didn't run for re-election or didn't get re-elected. So you got to put some kind of word to cover that scenario.
I think you do that.
I think the next
sentence, Mayor, handles that.
You fill the vacancy.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, actually that's going to happen because, come January, we're going to have a new person from Johns Island.
Right.
Who's going to be gone?
I think we've kind of wordsmithed this one pretty good.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I think it's pretty clear, or at least as concise as we could make it, covering some of the externalities that may arise. I think it gets where we were trying to go.
Okay.
All right. So may I have a motion to recommend that we send this language to council at the next meeting?
I'm gonna make that motion. I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, it has been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded to approve the language as presented here on the screen. Is there any further discussion on that?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, I want to thank you for your extra consideration on this and your input on this. I really do sincerely. I want to thank my Councilman Bowden and Chairman Brady and Rick Giroux. I mean, we all pushing in the right direction on this one. I know it was uncomfortable, at least, to even have this discussion, but prayerfully on the other side, we'll all feel more involved going forward. So I really sincerely want to, and I want that to be in the minutes. So I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your extra consideration, and you, Chairman Brady, for your leadership, and Ms. Copeland for her expertise in keeping us out of constitutionality troubled waters there.
Anytime.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Waring. Is there any
All right.
further discussion?
That's it. I'm going, after this vote, I'm going to my church and deal with the finances. So this is a lot easier, believe it or not, dealing with that.
Good luck with that.
You gotta
Hearing-
vote on this, you gotta vote on this first.
Yeah, I'd say hearing no further discussion on this item, I'd like to call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, it's going to council with a unanimous recommendation.
One other person I need to thank. Remember when we spoke to Jennifer in the previous meeting, and Jennifer told us about some of the committees, and maybe one of them I think had 7 people on, and so the tweaking, and there was some languages that she actually helped author in this too. So thank you, Ms. Cook, for your input as well.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right.
All right. See y'all
That
later.
concludes our business. And
And
I
all
will-
all the rest of it is gonna stay in there, like changing the numbers on the committees and all like that?
I hope so.
Yeah.
It was my understanding when we deferred that we were resolving this question, but no one else had really spoken about any of the other
Okay.
changes.
Just checking.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Talk to y'all. Bye.